Either it breaks you or it breaks through. Suicide. Hey, Sanford here, and welcome to Unlock to Unleash. Today, we're going to talk about mental health and suicide. It's a tough topic for some, yet it's real, and it doesn't just go on vacation during the holidays. So I was asked a question last week by one of my clients' parents, which I thought was, a very timely question. The question was, does suicide go up during the holidays? Well, I said in my experience, it doesn't. What does go up is stress. Stress is the major cause of suicide and many other mental health issues, and particularly this time of year. And with that inquiry, I thought I would speak on that piece. We have so many pressures during this time of year with our families, our friends, and the inequalities of colored people, especially during the holidays. It's that time of year again, okay? We are celebrating, we have the social gatherings, but for some, it can be a time of self-reflection, anxiety, loneliness, and depression. And then there's the raging pandemic and the subsequent social distancing restrictions, which of course have made matters a lot worse for so many. Even in the best conditions, the holidays can be, quite stressful and painful. For many, exchanging gifts and eating with loved ones, shopping, gathering with the friends, and all the holiday-related obligations and expectations can cause and add pressure to the already busy and stressful lives for so many of us. The holidays can trigger absence that may exist in our lives already. Whether it's the absence of financial security, a loved one, or those who are already dealing with mental health conditions such as clinical depression or anxiety. The time of year can get so heavy for particularly our youth and members of the Black community might be more at risk of finding themselves in the throes of depression and anxiety this holiday season. I have been quite fortunate to have traveled to many places in the world, because I followed my passion, my dream as a performing artist and as a competitive athlete. Now, the two places that I've spent the majority of my time have been America and my second place, Australia. Now, I have been in and out of Australia for the last 22 years. And to this day, people in Australia still say, wow, you still have your accent. Many people born in Australia still try to tell me how to pronounce things like Australians say them. Things like, instead of saying the boot, I say the trunk of a car. Other certain words that I grew up saying, like aluminum, they say aluminium here. I say they say oregano, I say oregano. And they want me to say things like good day mate with an accent. Or they tell me, certain people tell me, you've been here so long, you're already Australian. Many Australians have this sort of acute unawareness or unconscious bias toward making themselves feel more comfortable by putting me into a box. However, there are three basic things that they just don't understand. One, I am of a different culture. Two, I am not like a character from their favorite television show, from movies, from news programs, or a YouTube channel. And three, because I've chosen to live in another country, sometimes I get triggered. I get sad, I get lonely, and I have all these memories of home. To have people telling me in the country that I live in that their perception or a stereotypical ideal of a Black man, well, it's just downright painful and it lacks empathy. What I want to offer, because you guys know I'm a life coach, I'm a mental wealth and a creative movement life coach. But I want to be able to break down some things, and I want to be able to help not only my clients, but I want to help people understand we all have different perceptions because everything really is. Any argument is just based around perceptions. Now, perceptions come from depending on where you were born, raised, your environment, the types of materials and people that you take in. With that, we forget to take other perspectives or to explore other creative ways of doing and seeing things. Now, when this happens, we are caught in that unconscious or implicit bias that I spoke on earlier. We can all get caught in this bias if we don't allow more education to come into our worlds. We only have one perspective. If we don't have a diverse group of friends, networks, or other people that challenge our current views and perspectives, we get stuck. We get stuck in unconscious bias when conflict or uncomfortable situations arise around issues such as race, sexism, religion. Okay? We get caught in what? We get caught in our perspective. And we understand perspective is not right or wrong. It's just our way of seeing it. But we do get caught in a cognitive dissonance when we get confronted with something we've never had to think about or face in our lives. Now, cognitive dissonance, okay, I'll just explain that. You know, it's a mental discomfort that results in holding two conflicting beliefs, values, or ideas, okay? Now, people tend to, we want that sort of consistency in our attitudes and our perception, but we get caught in that conflict if we have that cognitive dissonance, and it makes us uneasy and uncomfortable. So today's perspective is from my background, from my research, and from my willingness to help my listeners and clients and others see what my perspective is all about. And I hope, of course, that you comment and that you like and that you share, okay? Now, let's go ahead and get started and go a little bit deeper. With our youth, okay, we'll start there. Mental health and suicide affects primarily our youth and our Black cultures. That's in America and here in Australia, okay? And when we get to the end of this talk, I'll also give you some ways that we can approach things with more empathy, support, and healing because sometimes people just don't know what to do or know what to say. Okay, we do have professionals, but I believe we can also help. So let's look at our youth and their mental health. Okay, each day, the rate of young people committing suicide is going higher and higher. Now, this is quite alarming. In Australia, suicide is the leading cause of death for ages 15 to 24. Okay. Now, of course, there's still a societal stigma around that, and people don't want to talk about it. In order to prevent this epidemic, we need to believe that youth suicide prevention needs to be regularly implemented in everyday life and at schools to stop the high rates of suicide deaths we are experiencing. Although there is a lot to learn, okay, in that space, there are some signs we can keep an eye out for if we are worried about a friend, a colleague, or a loved one. Now, so I have some of those listed here, and I just want to be able to say them to you, okay? So these are some of the signs you want to look out for. Loss, they had a loss in their lives. If they're talking about suicide, if they have been physically or sexually abused, if they have a lot of aggressive behavior, okay? If they have poor coping skills, okay? If they have experienced traumatic events, okay? Thoughts about suicide and suicide attempts are often associated with depression. In addition to depression, other risk factors include, okay, exposure to violence, impulsivity, bullying, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, if there is an acute loss or rejection, okay? Young people are a lot more sensitive than we may realize or that they let on, okay? It may be hard to remember what it was like when we were children, okay? The adult brain lacks empathy because, we've been around a while, so we go straight to logic. We have to reverse engineer that. We really do as parents, as adults, okay? So let's move on to the killing of George Floyd. Clinical depression is far more common than many people think. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, overall, 1 in 5 adults will experience mental health issues each year. And Black people are 20% more likely to experience a serious mental health problem than members from other racial backgrounds. Now, more specifically, studies have shown that each year 19 million Americans experience some form of depressive illness. And in Australia, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 5 men, look at the room that you're in now, experience depression or anxiety or a substance abuse. Black people are overrepresented in the population that are particularly at risk for mental illness. And when they do develop depression, they experience it more severe and longer lasting symptoms. Although depression is pervasive and challenges millions each year, anxiety is the most common mental health problem in America and in Australia. Similar feelings of sadness in everyone will be experienced. Anxiety through life will also happen. However, according to the Mayo Clinic, if you don't know the Mayo Clinic, look that up. People diagnosed with anxiety disorder such as generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, or other phobias such as separation anxiety, which our kids will have, we will have if we break up with someone, or intense feelings. If these persist and we constantly in worry and fear, then this is some of the sure signs that someone may be thinking about suicide or fixating on it. Okay? And it's very important not to try to control or interrupt people when they're going through the process, but to talk to them, but to ask them questions, open-ended questions. Okay? Often anxiety disorder involved repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety and fear, which can reach peaks within minutes. Okay, and you may know someone that's had panic attacks. So depression can start in your childhood or in your teen years. And of course, part of the reason I think there's so many divorces is because it goes right into our adulthoods. Exposure to trauma also has a link to anxiety disorder. Okay, the Census Bureau released a report. Okay, in that report, they talked about the rates of anxiety and depression among Black people have increased since the killing of George Floyd. And if you haven't seen it, I know so many of us have. The anxiety that is presented in Black people who are more likely to develop, okay, this has been stated, they're more likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, and those rates are higher than they would be for white people. Because PTSD is classically a response to trauma, this suggests that high rates of racial trauma may play a significant role in Blacks being more likely to develop this disorder. Okay? Black adolescents are at a greater risk of being exposed to violence, which makes them vulnerable to PTSD by over 25% compared to their white peers. Okay? And you can go look this information up on the Forbes magazine, which was presented December 7th, 2020. This next part is called A Weeping Nation. The reality is the majority of those suicides have not been presented to anyone. Suicide ideation has previously, or people don't talk about the previous suicide ideation. Okay, and so it's a big struggle. It's a huge stressor when people don't talk about things that go on in their life. Okay, and this, of course, this won't go away or reduce stress if you don't talk about it. There's a greater legacy than the one where we help one another. Okay, we have to get back to that. The harrowing suicide rate among Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people is underwritten by acute poverty, disadvantage, and marginalization on that, and that of course shouldn't even have an impact in the nation as rich as Australia. Suicide accounts for more than 5% of Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders' deaths. Now, it's a staggering statistic. In fact, In my estimation, because of the underreporting of issues, and you know this too, suicide actually accounts for 10% of the deaths. Okay? At this time of year, more than 20% of the deaths are happening. It's just the suicides, but it's not just suicides, but it's the abrupt behavior and high arrest rates as well in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait community. Now this, of course, is very serious, and it leaves many of them vulnerable. We cannot just expect them to adjust their coping mechanisms, their temperament, and their behaviors without support, without friends, without love. Okay? That takes time. That takes time. It takes people willing to do that. We as families, friends, and community, we can contribute to moving these things forward by being very present and by our love. Do not let those around us, okay, think that they have to do it all by themselves. They think they have to be tough. Let them know they don't have to struggle in silence. It's dangerous to internalize grief. In the past 5 years, I have written over 200 articles and shot videos about mental health disorders, particularly trauma, depression, and anxiety. And it pertains a lot to families, men and women relationships, and of course, our youth. Our nation should weep, but more importantly, should act when 80% of suicides of children aged 12 years and younger, their rates of suicide in the Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders are so high. So a tough topic, folks, but it's something that we need to talk about, particularly this time of year. So I just want to offer you guys some helpful little tactics and ways that you can help those that may be struggling, okay? So number one, never give up on them. People who have suicidal thoughts are often very stubborn, as so many of us are, that they will always push people away. But no matter how hard they push, don't give up. Find a way in. If they can't be strong for themselves, then be strong for them. Stand by their side as long as you can. And be that individual that never gives up on them. Talk to them. Ask open-ended questions. Okay? Don't let them sabotage themselves. Okay? Know that he or she is not trying to hurt you. Okay? They're probably hurting so much for themselves. Okay, so just keep that in your mind. Number two, listen. Most of the time, people are suicidal because no one's listening. Okay? Hear their story. Listen to their wholehearted story. This gesture can actually, it can make a huge difference. I remember when I was struggling with that. You know, try to be attentive and not have, other alternatives, and other motives. Okay? Really try that listening, that perspective of compassion, okay? Number three, offer pathways for them to seek help, such as your local GP, okay? Other mental health facilities, okay? If you are worried about someone, offer to go with them to the doctor. If you are not knowledgeable enough on how to deal with a suicidal person, it is best to follow this tip. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This next one, offer a cup of tea or ice cream or coffee. Okay, this old-fashioned little way actually is a good way. Try to make a space for them. Spend time with that person. Do not count the time, spend that time. Instead of just focusing on other things, be in that moment. The next one, offer a distraction. There's a lot of ways that you can make a small gesture, okay? And the distraction is not just to take them away from what's going on, but to help them calm down and be in that moment, like taking a walk, playing basketball, doing some exercise, playing some pool, so you can have an open conversation without them getting high tense and feeling that they're under pressure. Next one is share yourself. Share tips, things that you've gone through. I know I've gone through suicidal thoughts. I know I've been depressed. So share that part of yourself. Don't overtake the conversation. Just be in that moment and share bits and pieces in the breaks after you get through listening. Okay? Now, according to research, 2016, it can help you feel healthy and relaxed if you help to make them feel healthy and relaxed by doing different things with them. Okay? So they're not feeling your angst and you're open to what they're saying without being judgmental, even if it's just happening in your head. Okay? If you want more information, go up, look up other sources. Okay? So I know it's been an extremely tough topic. And if you are triggered by anything that we talked about today, call your local helpline. Please, please, please speak up if someone is struggling with something, okay? And I just want to send you guys lots of love and send you nothing but peace and power. Happy holidays to you. And remember to always, always love your mission. Peace. We'll see you guys later.